Imagine that everyone in your marketplace knows of you and your law firm. What would that do for your business? Well, Morris Lilienthal does not need to imagine that. He and his partners built such a reputation that they're just one connection away from knowing absolutely everyone in their marketplace. How did they do it? Well, this episode is his story and how they built such a marketing machine that 4% of their market are their clients or were their clients at some point. It's an amazing story. Listen, learn, borrow some ideas and implement them in your law firm. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast, and I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel, and the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to Grow Law Podcast. I have a wonderful guest with me here today, Morris Lilienthal of Martinson and Beason, a law firm that was started all the way back in 1937. You do not hear of many law firms that were started nearly 100 years ago. A successful law firm, and the coolest part about this law firm is that Morris built up relationships all throughout town to the point where he and his colleagues, his partner and their associates know everybody through they're one connection away from knowing absolutely everybody in the mid-sized market, which is Huntsville, Alabama. Morris, welcome to the show. Tell us your story, how you got here.
Oh, Sasha, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a guest today. And yes, we are very blessed to be in a great town here in Huntsville, Alabama that is growing. We're now the last year have been the fastest and largest community here in Alabama, and home to Redstone Arsenal, which has a large military base, a lot of defense contractors, home of NASA. If you've ever heard of Space Camp and sending kids to Space Camp, that's here in Huntsville. And just recently announced that Space Command is going to be moving here. So we have a large, very intellectual and tech community, which you would not think of Alabama, but we're very tech based here. And we have more engineers per capita than any city in the country, Sasha. And our firm, founded in 1937, was a small firm, but as the town has grown and the needs of our community have changed, our firm has grown and changed to adapt to grow and to serve our community. And so we're a full service law firm, but there's 7 lawyers now here at our office, and we each have our own niche. So instead of niching the firm down to one or two practice areas, we each have departments that are niched down into those practice areas. And so I do personal injury. Some of my partners and the attorneys do here a ton of estate planning and probate work. We have a really big department for that. We're the county conservator. We're also the city attorneys for some municipalities here. And we do a lot of corporate law, and we have a big real estate department. So we do a lot of things here. We do a good job of cross marketing. So when someone steps into our doors, there's a good chance that we're going to help them. And one of the coolest things here is to hear from somebody I may handle a car wreck for, or we may do their estate plan, to find out that we represented their great grandfather in a matter years and years ago, and they're still coming back. But that doesn't happen without being deliberate about staying in touch with people, what I would call grassroots marketing. Some folks call it your tribe or herd, or staying in touch with your team. And so those are some of the things that we have historically done that we started doing several years ago, and trying to do that. And then some other things that we have done to try to allow ourselves to not only stay in touch with those folks that have been historically clients of Martinson and Beason, but also to grow our network and influence, and do that so we can be within 1 to 2 people to make a connection to somebody in our community.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you before we hit the record button, I have never met anyone who knew almost everyone or everyone through one connection away in any market, especially a market where you have 250,000 people. And also, this market, you said that it's incredibly diverse, as a lot of people are moving into the market. So it's not like everyone was born and raised there, but a substantial percentage of people are relative newcomers there. What really amazed me is the number of marketing channels that you're leveraging on regular basis to stay connected to just about everybody in the market. I'm going to fire off the list and you tell me if I missed anything.
Okay.
Public speaking, check. Videos, you've done hundreds of short videos. There are tips that you do 30 to 60 seconds, check. I check your state of SEO before this podcast, check. You do that and very well. There's social media marketing. You do guesting on podcasts, obviously. There is local service ads or LSAs. You do that. You have 514 reviews on just one of your offices. You have your own podcast or show that you call, I believe, a Mo live show.
Yeah. The Mo Show Live. Yeah.
Um, there you go. And there was something else. I'm certain of it that I'm missing. Well, you do cross marketing, obviously, between different attorneys, between different practice areas. What they miss, if anything?
Well, and we're very engaged in the community. We give back a lot, and we're speaking to folks in our community. We're very active in our community in the Rotary clubs and those kinds of things. And all of us that have kids, like a lot of people who are listening, are very engaged with our children's activities at school, serving on school boards and PTA. I got asked to be on the PTA board a few years ago. So anything and everything we can do to keep a connection, to give back to that had been so good to us, that we try to do. But we feel like that there are a lot of things and levers that we can pull and do so in an effective way as a small to medium-sized law firm. And I think people sometimes get daunted by that. Out there are probably some of the listeners to your podcast that are law firm owners that are smaller firms. And it's like, where do I start? Or I don't have the budget of a Morgan and Morgan or whoever the 800-pound gorilla is. And you don't have to. And we don't. Even with 7 lawyers, we don't. And so I think there are some levers and things that you can leverage and do. And I think you just have to give yourself the freedom to do it and step outside of your comfort zone. And so for me, 7-8 years ago, when I first started doing these video tips and then started my podcast, which is a video podcast that we then, as you I'm sure could tell a lot of your clients and folks, repurpose everything and do. So we repurpose it and turn it into a podcast and share reels and things on Instagram and other platforms with my podcast. But there are things that you can do if you will just allow yourself the freedom to do and then try to branch out a little bit. I think we all get stuck in the ruts. And the other is that we want instant success with a lot of these things. And some of these things take some time to build, especially some of the social media, some of the podcasting, some of the networking, and some of those things. If you're going to build brand affinity and networking and do some of that is more of instead of a sprint, it's more of a marathon. And that's what we've done. And we've bought in and some things don't work and we pivot and move in another way, but we're not going to give up on the first try and we'll learn from it and move on.
Very interesting. So your firm revenue more than doubled in the recent years since you started leading marketing without doubling the headcount of your attorneys. So it's a more successful firm today than it was just a few years back, significantly more successful firm. And I'm picturing Mr. or Mrs. law firm owner listening to this, and they're like, I ain't got the time to do all those things. How does this guy do this? And does he practice law? So first question, do you still practice law? And if the answer is yes, where do you find the time?
Great question. And so, yes, I still practice law. I'm managing 125 active files and probably another 100 and some odd referred out, or probably 200 referred out files for medical malpractice and mass tort things that we don't do in office, that we do use some of our marketing tools to get those cases in, because why not? Like 3M and some other things that we do. We've got the connections, especially in this kind of community, to get those cases in. So why not leverage those things we put time and energy into? But I think where it is kind of starting and kind of figuring out where some low hanging fruit is. What are some things that you can do? So for example, the tips from Mo that I've historically done, I started, Sasha, with just doing on my phone. I just turn my phone, hit the camera, turn it around, and do 30 to 60-second tips. And it really wasn't about the law. Typically, it was more about life, inspiration, things. For me, I call it my fact to fit journey that a lot of people struggle with. things that I see or inspirations that I see from my son or from other things in my life. And I would occasionally share some legal tips and do. I just don't think a lot of people want to hear a lot about the law on social a lot of times, but sprinkle it in so they know I'm a lawyer. But I didn't worry about the quality of the video. What I mean by that is I want it to be decent audio and decent video, but I wasn't trying to, I need to get this just right. Because look at everything we're watching on social now. None of the video is that quality and do. And so I started with that in mind. And then as it developed and I got more successful and we had more revenue to spend on stuff, we started tweaking and turning things around here where we could refine it more and get more squeeze out of that juice. So, for example, I have a virtual assistant that works for me, and she's worked for me 4 or 5 years. I have a call with her after our call, after we're recording this podcast, and she's going to help me with some stuff that we're working on. But she's the one that does the most show for me. She sets up the thing in StreamYard. She's the one that grabs the audio, rips the audio, and turns it into a podcast and doing all this. But when I first started the podcast, it was just me on Blue Jeans. And if you're familiar with what Blue Jeans was, it was kind of like, it's similar to Zoom or something like that. It was the application I was using that could stream it live. But since then, I've developed it. Now I'm using StreamYard, gives it a more professional look, and I can scroll things and do all these things that I can do with it. And then now I've said, okay, well, how can I repurpose a lot of this? I'm already putting the energy into it. And how can I take some of this out of me? And that was finding a VA. But so finding other ways that you can have access to other resources, whether that's AI now or whatever, to try to maximize your return, it can be done. I'd say just don't give yourself the freedom to try it, and then don't be worried about perfection. 80% of a quality product is better than no product at all.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So you're carrying 125 caseload plus doing all of this marketing. I know the next thought that many people are having, this guy must be an extreme extrovert. Would you say you are?
I think I don't know that I'm always have been comfortable with doing that. No, because when I started these videos, when I would record these, what I call tips from Mo, I might record it 15 times before I got it where I felt comfortable doing it. And now I could do one, Sasha, in first take almost every time. And part of that is I've recorded hundreds of them, but the other part was I just gave myself the freedom to say, well, that sounds pretty good, and I got the message across that I wanted to get across, and do, and I think it's just one of those that you've got to get to that. But again, that may not be for everybody, but if you've got a partner, maybe your partner in your law firm is more apt to do that for you. And so finding what works best for your personality may be right. And again, my path is not necessarily your path. But I think a lot of times where people get hung up is they don't give themselves the freedom to do it, or don't think that somebody else would listen or care. I think you'd be surprised that a lot of lawyers out there are leaders in their community and have insight on things, not just the law, but insight on stuff that could provide value. And my take, especially with social media and with anything, is that we want to provide value where we can. And I think if you do that and you're genuine about it and you are consistent with it, you can't do it once or twice a month, then what you're going to find is that people are going to follow you, and people are going to gravitate to you. That's the same thing with the local things we're doing in the community as well. If we're consistent with it, genuine with it, people gravitate towards it and then expect it. And then, it's the old saying, once they get to know you, they get to like you, and then they get to trust you. Then once you clinch that trust, the referrals and the cases are going to flow from it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. The first time I recorded what I thought would be a professional video, the year was 2010, and 1 minute long video was about 160 takes. Hours. I mean, hours. I was sweating. It was hard work. But now, just like you, it's one take, 2 takes if I have to. If it's a serious commercial, I may do a few takes, but never does it take more than 20, 25 minutes to produce even a commercial, because what the hell? It shouldn't take that long. Who's got the time? So to those who are like resistant or hesitant to the idea of doing these things, number one, delegate everything but the content creation itself.
Yes.
You're the star of your show. People will come to you because, just like you said, they know you, they get to like you, and over time, they get to trust you. Not because you have cinematic quality to your videos. Nobody cares. It doesn't have to be perfect. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely, wholeheartedly. So all of these things and carrying cases, and you're doing this. So I wonder which of these channels, if you know, works best. People are thinking like, well, if I decide to do this, would this work better for me, or would that work better for me? Is there any one channel that you prefer for attracting new clients, or do they all work well in conjunction?
I think it's in conjunction for sure, and I think and certainly some things work better than others. And again, in terms of if you're talking about social, that's one thing I've had seem to have more success with Facebook over the years, personally through my Mo show and videos and those kinds of things, and engagement. And with regards to networking and we have historically done a really good job of that, and just staying in touch with people. And I think people lose sight of that from small law firms. It's like, well, if I did a good job for Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith in their car wreck case or their estate plan, but I haven't touched base with them in a few years, well, certainly they're going to call me when they think about it. But I say, well, what happens in 3 years when your HVAC system goes out at your house? Do you remember them if you haven't heard from them or touched with them? I don't. That happened to me a few years ago. I had just put a unit in about a year before, and I had to go back and look at my credit card bill to find out what the
Mm.
HVAC company's name was, because I had forgotten it and they had never sent me anything else. And I had mistakenly not put it into my database in my phone. And so I think that is something that we do a good job of here, traditional marketing, and that's staying in touch. I mentioned this off air. We've got, I know this is a podcast and not a video podcast, but we've got these
It's a video
football.
podcast. Some
Okay.
people
So
watch it. Yeah.
so we've got these football magnets that we've done for years. And this
Mhm.
seems really simplistic that people wouldn't care about it, but know your market and know your where you are in your community. We know that Alabama and Auburn football are very powerful tools around here, and sports is big in our community. So we have these football magnets that has the schedule, and we put those out every year, 10,000 of these, and we mail out over 8,500 of them this year, and people love them. I can't tell you that me and my partner both got dozens of messages. Hey, where are the magnets? Because we were a week or two late getting them out this year. And then once he got them, he sent me a couple of messages, and then we're flooded with comments on Facebook. People love them and do, and so people remember you, and it's that what I call TOMA, that top of the mind advertising. That if you've got to stay in front of people, and whether that is, and I think you've going to your point, it's a shotgun approach, in my opinion, in which is we want to hit them. Maybe we hit them with something in the mail once or twice a year, whether we hit them in their email with an e-newsletter. Then maybe they're following us on social media and do. And that's why, for example, in these what's happening pages that are in a lot of these communities on Facebook, where it's what's happening in Fort Lauderdale, whatever little thing, or what's happening Huntsville or Addison,
Mhm.
Alabama, those are a place that a lot of the community goes to look for recommendations for services, one being lawyers. And we're very fortunate that we have a good reputation and we've done good work. We have a great team here, and our staff cares. And so when people ask for a lawyer, I am many times in the firm throughout the week is tagged and recommended and recommended and recommended. And it's because we're in front of people all the time in various things. I'm going to be at one of the main elementary schools here next week to speak on Constitution and jury trial to a bunch of the whole fifth grade. And then they ask us to sponsor their little woot woot cart where we give out food and do. And then I'm going to have a bag with a thermos bottle for all 85 teachers. And
Wow.
so,
Okay.
everywhere we can, we're going to try to stay in tune and do. So when someone needs a lawyer, they think of Martinson Beason or somebody recommends them. And then back to your other point, then when they go to get social proof, they're looking for us online, and we're recommended by somebody. And then they Google our name. Then we've got 500 plus 5-star reviews. Then they say we've been around since 1937. There's a good chance we're going to get that call.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you're listening to this, and you may be skeptical, here's what Morris said. Their client base is about 10,000 names. They have 514 reviews on just one of their offices. In a smaller market, 10,000 names out of about 250,000 people, that's 4%. of the entire market. Now consider the fact that most people in the United States of America hire an attorney 3 times in their lifetimes. That is an insane, insane market penetration. It's huge. And if you're thinking, well, yeah, but it's a smaller market and I live and my office is in Chicago or Phoenix, and I use Phoenix on purpose. Think again. So Lerner and Rowe, a much larger PI only law firm, they're based out of Phoenix. They own, quote unquote, a number of markets. They did a study a few years ago to see what most consumers in Phoenix, Arizona, what personal injury law firm they know of. 85% of adults identified Lerner and Rowe as a law firm that they know of. That is a huge, huge, huge brand awareness. How do they do it? By doing some of the similar things as you do with your law firm, making sure that they are in front of everybody throughout the year, every year. It is a huge part of their success. Huge. I talked to Glenn Lerner about it, and he said, yeah, billboards, nobody thinks that billboards work until you get on the rack. You may never get on the rack and meet a lawyer, but if you do, and you pick up a phone, and you're like, oh, these are the guys. Or boss reps, or involvement with local little leagues and radio advertisement, and this and that, and connecting with people on the street level, just doing things in the community. No immediate ROI. Long term, ginormous ROI.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Louis Scott, he built his PI law firm in Atlanta, larger market. In under 7 years, they went from 5 million to 50 million. I was like, how'd you do it? And he's like, well, the first thing we had to do was take care of digital, because that's where everyone is searching. So if you want to get immediate cases, you got to be there. But once we got good penetration there, we started doing brand marketing. And it's everything that you said, Morris. They did all of those things. 10x growth in a little under 7 years. He's like, we were everywhere, and we were not shy about investing money in that.
Yeah.
Stuff just works. But if you're sitting in the office and waiting for the phone to ring, hoping for referrals, or you're more aggressive than that, you invest into relationships and you get some referrals, and you invest into SEO, great stuff, but that still is limiting. You're doing close to a dozen things to attract business. I applaud you for that. It's very, very rare.
Well, thank you. We're in a great community. We have a great team here. We've got a great group of 7 lawyers, and like I said, 15 support staff, and we work really hard, and we play hard. We have a good culture here, and we enjoy getting together and doing things in the community and supporting each other and their children and our charities and things that we have a passion for. And we're just here, and we want to keep doing great things. But we understand as our community grows, the competition's growing. There are more lawyers here, more regional, national players. And so we have had to adapt and grow our thought processes and how can we continue to expand to meet the needs of our community so our firm can not only be maintained, but we can grow and we can flourish. And fortunately, we've been able to do that, and we've had a lot of forward thinking. And I think the listeners out there can do that. And I just think you just need to find 2 or 3 of these areas that work for your personality and can fit your budget right now, and go do it. And then talk to other things. That's the other thing I would encourage people to do, Sasha, that I've done, is that I have networked with people when I was first starting on this journey and said, what are you doing, Sasha? What are you doing? What is this person doing? And when I found 2 or 3 things that I liked, whether it was digital, whether it was the podcast thing, I reached out years ago to Mitch Jackson, met Mitch Jackson at a conference, and Mitch was one of the leading people out on social and has 30-something thousand followers on Twitter and all this kind of stuff years and years ago before people were actively doing on social. And I got into a marketing group with him and learned more about how to do a podcast and how to do this. And then I just said, well, I'm going to try it. And if I fail, guess what? So what? I'll get up and figure it out. It's just no different than when I play college football. If I missed a block, I've got to get back up the next play and try to make the block the next play. So I just encourage people to try it and do it. And if you're listening and you want feedback or talk to me about it, I'm always an open book. I love to talk to people and try to help people, because I think, if I can help them, that I'm always going to learn something back from them.
Appreciate that offer. How do they best connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to our website, martinsonandbeason.com, and my profile's there, or you can go to the moshow.live. That's the site for my podcast, and you've got a bio section there. That's something else I encourage people to do is you get out there and do. I've got a bio page that has all the podcasts that I've been on, the books that I've been contributing authors to. And so if you're trying to get as a guest on a podcast or get speaking engagements where I've applied to be speaking at several conferences over the years, I can send them those links to that page where they can see that I've got some justification and background to as an expert in those industries. And it's allowed me to kind of get my foot out there and be a speaker and guest on other podcasts. And just like today, I appreciate you taking the time to invite me.
Absolutely. One word about your show. I found it very interesting, and I know that you've done it on purpose, is that throughout the show, most of the topics and most of the people who you talk to, you don't really talk about law. You don't talk about what you do. You're just connecting with local people. I saw there was the Humane Society. There was someone from the city hall. There was someone from a local museum, local businesses. All of that is not about what you do. It's about making those genuine connections, which for those of you who may be listening and they're like, hey, if I do this, like, I don't know what to talk about. Talk about other people, their businesses, their organizations, their interests.
100% spot on. And that's been intentional for sure. I think a lot of folks don't want to listen to people talk about the law. Me and you and these people listening to your podcast, which is great. It's a great resource for people in our position. But for those in the community, I'm trying to connect with new people. And by doing so in a genuine fashion, I had the president of Make-A-Wish Alabama on, and what an awesome organization Make-A-Wish is for those kids that are suffering from some illness or disability that have a dream to do something and they can do that. And I thought, man, that every time I see a video about that, what a passion that would be, what awesome would be. So I just cold call them, I actually would tell you what I do now is I have my VA do it. Mm-hmm. She and I will round table ideas and I say, hey, can you reach out to these organizations? She sent 6 emails out last night to organizations we talked about a week ago. And so I'm rounding up new guests now. And so it's allowed me to network in and do, and I will run into people all the time that know me through that podcast and do because they're a fan of Make-A-Wish. And when Make-A-Wish shared that out to their 30,000 followers. And again, my StreamYard thing says dad, husband, lawyer at the top, the layout. So it's woven in there and sometimes it comes in, but I don't want to be, in the vein of I'm doing it to try to make a connection to get cases. If I do it in a genuine way to market and brand me and my firm, then the cases will flow from it, and they have.
Yeah. I find that to be very similar to being a charitable person. If you do a lot of charitable giving, and you don't think about return on that investment, quote unquote, at some point, you start getting something back. You don't know how it works, God, universe, but by being a charitable person, life will be charitable to you. It just works. You only cannot give with the intent to get something back. It has to be, you give it away, you help somebody else with whatever it is that they need, and you forget about it. And you do it bazillion times, and at some point, somehow, life starts showering you with gifts. It worked in my life and so many other people who I know.
Absolutely. 100%. I've been very, with regards to running our firm, from all the marketing stuff we talked about today to, when I'm trying to figure out how to set up and looking for case management systems. I had several people a few years ago were kind enough to show me their file bond setup and walked me through that. And so that's what we use here. And so I've just built a network of lawyers and connections that when I have a question or concern, that I've got a lot of trusted friends now. I can say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Can you have any suggestions or feedback? And then that's why I'm always open to give and do any way I can to people that are listening. Please, I'm genuinely mean that. Reach out and do, because it's going to be something that I know I'm going to take some nugget away from our conversation.
100%. I also love that you have a VA, and VA is not a legal assistant. VA gets very, very different type of tasks. I have a VA. She's my executive assistant. She is, I want to say, about 13 time zones away in Philippines. Perfect English, bachelor degree in marketing, really understands marketing, very technical, also very smart, very strategic. Whenever I need to send her a task, I just pick up the phone and I'm like, Carla, help me out with this. And that's the deadline. And it's just done. And I heard from a really smart man once. He said that if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant.
That's right. That's exactly right. No. It's tough to figure out and do, but I would say equivalate it to your practice. If you're a solo or 2 or 3 man law firm, a lot of us can't do it without our paralegals or legal assistants, and so how do we manage getting discovery or correspondence out, or doing whatever in your practice area? You're totally relying upon the staff that you've got, and so the same would be true for marketing, and that is, again, economic wise, you got to start. We didn't start on those. We had to crawl before we ran. But doing that, and then once you can do it, because that can leverage you to do more repurposing, and do it quicker and faster in a better way. And you usually got, like you said, Sasha, someone that has a better skill set than you do to do it, and it allows you to work on more important things and high level stuff to do, and so you can now accomplish more tasks and get more done in a shorter amount of time with more impact by having someone like a VA.
Yeah, it's great. Last question. Think back 17 years when you just started at your law firm. Looking back from where you stand now, what advice would you give your younger, much younger self? You're probably now in your mid-20s, to get to where you are today faster, if you would want to get here faster.
I would say systems, and that is to put things into place, and do to kind of do. That's something that took us a little while to get together. We did not have certain marketing channels and things weren't in place here. We didn't even have a client list, and it took us a while to develop that and do. And so I would just say, when you're doing things, be systematic and be thoughtful about how you can repurpose or reuse information going forward. And then one B, I guess, if that's 1A, 1B would be what we talked about earlier, which is to allow yourself the freedom to step out there and do, and be uncomfortable a little bit and do. And I think we all have done that in various ways with our law careers and whatever we're doing. But I think you're going to need to do that from a marketing perspective, because to grow, you're going to have to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Morris, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.